content creation by itself is going to be one of the biggest businesses in the entire world.
He's the face behind the gadgets, the tech wizard we all adore, and the voice of innovation.
Whatever mankind has seen with the greatest innovation still today, and what we'll see in the next 2 years, will far surpass everything mankind has seen.
With over 2 decades at NDTV India, he's the ultimate authority on all things tech.
I just won an award for Tech Influencer of the Year, and ironically I call myself an uninfluencer. So I've always been the person that tells you more about what not to buy than what to buy. Anything right now in tech, especially AI, that you say wow to, is the area of concern.
Here's the one and only Rajiv Makhni. Okay, perfect. Rajiv, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this. Beyond thrilled to have you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to this because AI being the hot topic that it is,
yes.
And the amount of myths and the amount of insanity around the way it's being misused and abused, I think this should be a great conversation.
I think you're an incredible person to, shed light on this topic. Super thrilled to have you. Oh. I think we've explored a lot of your technology side. I think what's going to be really special about this episode is we also want to dive a lot into your personal life and your entrepreneurial journey, and the resilience you've showed and the way you've built your career is absolutely phenomenal, right?
I agree.
So, with that as a backdrop, I'd love if you could share with us a childhood memory or influence that planted the seeds of your fascination with technology.
So I actually have a story that I love to tell people. 80% of it is true, the rest of it is just, made up to make me sound better. But the 80% true part I'll tell you, which is that, my dad went off to Singapore, and at that time, bringing back a remote-controlled car was a very big deal. It was like, it would be a PlayStation 10 right now for most of us that we got our hands on that, right?
What year was this?
So I was 1973, 74. Okay.
Got it.
So he comes back in this remote control car, and state of the art, looked really fantastic, excellent looking thing. Was for my brother, who's about 5 years elder to me, not for me. And so he brings it for him, and we both play around with it. And next day in the morning, my brother goes off to school. I'm still at home. And instead of really playing around with the car, the 4-year-old me was far more interested in how did it do what it did. So I opened it up.
Excellent.
Right? So I think my interest has always been in seeing what makes it work rather than what it does, right?
Absolutely.
To go a little deeper in, then that's where the 80% of the story closes. Then the rest of the one that I always add on is that that's how I started to get, my interest in all tech has always been to explore the unknown, the deeper parts of it. But it really is true that I've always had that interest, whether it's technology or cars, or even if I come to someone's home, I'm more interested in seeing how it was put together, how is it operating, rather than how it actually functions and what are the features. Because that, I think, is the formative part of where I think you become very different from those who do versus those who actually innovate.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So I think that's one childhood memory. And I have this very clearly, the childhood memory, because I got slapped 3 times by my brother.
That was my follow-on question. How did that work out for you, this
Not very well.
fascination with technology?
Those 70 different parts that I had put out, I had no idea how to put them together. No one did. No one in India did. I mean, we took it to a few of these people who tinkered with it, and they're like, "Humne to dekha bhi nahi hai, ye hai kya?" So it was impossible. So formative years, violence, and this put together, you never forget.
Excellent.
Amazing.
Sounds like it was a very well-rounded childhood.
Very, very traumatic as it can be. But this, I think, is one of the things I remember. But it's always been like that.
Yeah.
I'm never really interested in the specs and the tech and the numbers, but just how does it do what it does. It's very important to me.
Amazing. I'm so glad you pursued your curiosity, right? Like you said, there's a difference between, a lot of people might think, how does this actually operate? But you went ahead and you had the guts to open up your brother's car. I mean, props to you.
I don't know whether it's guts or being very foolhardy, but whichever one of the two. I mean, But that's an important aspect that I think
Absolutely.
I talk about this to almost everybody, especially when I go to schools or colleges, and I talk that getting deeper into just don't take it at surface. You're fascinated with your phone.
Yeah.
Don't consume the content, create it. Don't look at a phone and say wow and use it try and understand what's happening inside it. These are very important points, and I see this to be the big difference between those that really go on to do something very big versus those that just exist. So for me, I think it's a very big distinction point.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Incredible gem.
That's great. So Devika talked about some of the highlights of your careers, right? Life is, of course, a mix of highs and lows. So can you share with us a challenging moment that you had in your career where you questioned your path, and then how did you actually have the resilience to overcome it?
So, I'll talk about something recent. I think you said it right. I think life is all about highs and lows. I think the most boring parts are the ones that are steady. And I'll talk to you about something that has happened very recently. So my career, the current career that we all talk about and why we're here, started off with me writing columns for various publications. And so it was the written word. And I've always enjoyed writing more than anything else, right?
That's good. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. But it is by far the thing that gives me the most satisfaction. And I'm talking about in-depth writing, not surface writing, not a 200-worder, 300-worder, but, 8 pages, 9 pages, which, of course, no one consumes anymore. But actually deep stuff. And always from a consumer's viewpoint, never from on top of a pedestal, talking down to people and saying, I know the tech and therefore let me explain it.
And this was writing for magazines?
I started off with a magazine called Man's World. It may sound very, very shady, but it wasn't. It was a good magazine at that time.
Tech World.
Yeah. So Man's World, then Hindustan Times, and a lot. I wrote, the first one was done for a friend who became editor of Man's World. And he said, listen, you waste all your money and time on cars and tech. Why don't you write about it from a consumer's viewpoint? And I had a lot of interest in exploring that. So this was very different from what normally tech writing at that time was. It was always PC World and PC Quest.
Right,
and
right.
You always talk down. You add a lot of jargon into it so that you sound superior. And it was always from let me explain. So the term mansplaining, I think textplaining came much before, much before. If you see two categories, and I always have fun with professional photographers when I say this, that two categories that are always far more complicated in terms of presenting it is professional photographers and how they'll describe camera and what they do with it, and anything tech where you ask somebody a question and they try and explain how to buy, what to buy, and what are the features. They always overcomplicate it. I think to keep a distinction saying that, I know it, you don't, and you never will because it's too complicated for you. So I wrote from a consumer's viewpoint, then moved on to television, then moved on to radio. And radio came much, much later because I wasn't very convinced about the platform, but it's absolutely amazing how radio is in India. But I never moved to social media as a platform because I was very unconvinced with myself, my reason to exist, right?
On social media?
On social media.
Not an existential issue? No,
not at all. It was more, if people can read my columns, hear me on radio, see me on TV, why should they see me in a 30-second shot on a YouTube, or an Instagram reel, on a 5-minute video? What do I bring different? So every time I've added on a platform, I've always asked myself the question, what is my reason to be? What is my reason to exist? Why will someone watch this and say, I got this from him that I do not get elsewhere? So only when I was able to answer that question did I come. And that was truly one of the biggest things that I think I have grappled with myself, the reason to exist on a completely different platform where the 1 second attention economy, as we all like to call it, actually is a big pivot. And if you see, people that have done television have not been able to do very well with it. People that have done YouTube for 8 or 10 years may have 20, 25 million followers, are terrible at doing a 60-second Instagram reel or a YouTube short.
Right.
There's almost no success story especially in the tech field, across platforms. Very few people are able to pivot to each platform because each platform does have a very clear requirement. And also a YouTube short 60 seconds is very different from an Instagram reel 60 seconds. Because the person who comes to that platform is coming there to consume something very, very different.
In a very different manner.
Yeah, I mean, in Instagram, they do not want anything other than entertainment. Great, throw in a little bit of knowledge, but that's not the reason they came there. And on YouTube, they will reject it because that's not what they came there for. They came searching for something very, very definitive. So this was a big struggle for me internally. Not so much what do I do, but should I do it?
Yeah.
And did I need to do it? But I'm very happy to say that I've done it today, and it's been very, very successful for me. And I'm glad I did it now rather than, and I'm sorry if people take it to be wrong, but there is a category in tech called Dabba Khol reviewers, which is a term
Unboxing.
for unboxing, which for the life of me, I've never understood, even when it was the most famous thing to do.
Yeah.
Why does that category even exist? What value do you bring to someone by saying, ये पीला डब्बा है, मैंने इसे खोल दिया है, इसके अंदर एक फ़ोन है, बड़ी अच्छी रैपिंग है, अडेप्टर भी है, इसके अंदर तार लाल है. I don't understand what did you bring. Yes, for a lot of people, it was aspirational because they did not have the chance to go and take a look at those phones, that kind of laptop, that kind of tablet.
Yeah.
But 10 years down the line, if you still continue to do that, I find it very, very strange.
But that's the reality, right? If that is being consumed,
it isn't anymore.
it isn't being. So
It
that's
isn't
that's
being
the
that.
that's the
the whole
change that's
point.
happening.
The big change is that if you do not bring in knowledge, value, and oh my God factor, a wow, I didn't know that, and put in entertainment and do it all in 45 seconds, you're pretty much dust. And that's why I think this was a huge crisis in my life where I had to take that decision. Do I? Or do I just carry on with what I'm doing, which is very, very successful, but reinvent on those platforms also? So the answer to that came to me was that I need to exist on all, have a reason to exist very different from every platform, and also reinvent the old platform. So these were important things. Big crisis. I think I struggled for almost a year. It's very funny that I started off with social media for most people would say, well, that's nothing. But for me, it was I did my television shows, and in the second month, I had the highest TRP of any show. My radio shows were number one within 15 days, the second week that I had done it. But in social media,
You started from zero.
I mean, you start from zero and you feel like that also because legacy doesn't translate onto social media. People will come to you, but they'll consume you. So I remember, I think the first few things for the first 3 months, I think there was one video of mine that got 3 views in all the time that it existed. Like now that I've got reminded of it, I must go back and see.
Yeah, 2 of them were your views. To just check the views.
Yeah, and I think I actually logged in from a different computer to get the second one.
Don't we all?
So I think it is, and I think it is also something for everyone to right now struggle with.
This is actually a great example. Honestly, when I asked the question, I was thinking I was almost leaning towards a more personal viewpoint, and you've actually shared a very relevant business viewpoint, right? I mean, you could trivialize this by saying, oh, that's fine, it's just a strategic piece. But actually, you've struggled with it. You struggled with it for a year, and then decided how you wanted to make, whatever changes you had to make from your approach, etc.
Absolutely, and I think it also, the struggle is more real than a typical personal one, which would be something that you struggle with, the challenges of life.
Yeah.
But this is actually one of the biggest ones, because today I think I get asked, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or any other platforms, they invite me today to talk about the incredible success in 1 year. And I always get reminded of that, that thing of, when they ask a sprinter, you're amazing for these 8 or 9 seconds, and they say, but you don't know my struggle for the last 8 or 9 years to be able to achieve the 9-second record.
As the saying goes, it takes 17 years to become an overnight success.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right? So it is something which is very important, because the biggest question I get asked today is, I want to be a content creator, I'm getting no success. And I think the answer to that is that your struggle is because you're not being able to answer the question, why do you exist in a space that has 1 million other people?
Okay, so there's a good point to do this follow-up, right? So what advice would you give to people who are facing similar struggles? You just kind of did give a quick clip, but what else? What advice would you give?
So I think take more time before you start than to kind of reinvent after you start. It's the exact opposite that anybody will tell you about social media. People just say, listen, get started. You learn more as you start putting things out, change things around, be relevant, be consistent. I think these rules are, there are so many algorithm plays people tell you, use music from Instagram, use trending music, make sure you have one video out every day. All of this, I think, is one term that I use for it, and that's completely bullshit. none of this matters, because what really will matter is, once again, coming down to, you're only relevant if your content shines, and your content only shines if you're doing something so dramatically, not a little, not a lot. If you're dramatically different from what everybody else is doing, people will flock to you in seconds, not minutes, not days, and not in months. But it is a big struggle to understand what can you do different, because every single category has enough people doing amazing things. So you've got to get a reason to exist, and it's got to be very different. Take enough time to answer that question. It's so much better to do it before you start than to keep pivoting and not stand for anything after the end of maybe a year or two.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
I think, this is such a testament to why you've been just successful as an individual, right? You're already a very big established personality on traditional television. When you approached social media, you gave it the respect it demanded. You didn't come like, hey, I'm the big guy, I know I'm going to be successful. You actually sat down, you took time to understand every single platform, and you're so right. Even though it's the same 5 people watching on different platforms, everyone has a different psychology, when they're on YouTube versus LinkedIn versus, LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff like that, right? How you gave it the respect it needed, how you, questioned, why should I create content in the first place? Which is about thinking about the audience. How can I provide value? How can I, it wasn't just I'm established, I know I'm going to get views, but you were how can I do this differently, right?
I did think that. I'm established, I'm the big guy, I'll come in and I'll create a storm. I just think that I had a little bit more maturity to understand that's not the reason why people will watch it. So I'm very happy that I took a step back and did not come in with that. I think a lot of people come with all guns blazing, and there are hundreds of examples of extreme success prior, and then you just come and get so humbled. But maybe a great lesson, but I don't think it's a lesson that many people need to go through. You just can do a little bit better.
That's amazing. Okay, keeping that as a backdrop, right? You started your career as a ramp walk model. And at the age of 26, you started an Italian cuisine home delivery chain in Delhi called Slice of Italy.
Right.
And from what I read on the internet, it also said that you were a founder and CEO of Imagine Clothing.
That's right also.
Most people have known you as a managing director of NDTV India, but you've always been an entrepreneur.
Right.
Walk me through what was going on in your mind as a kid? What was your dream when you were in your 20s?
Okay. So the first one wasn't the dream at all. I had a pretty interesting, discovery of that I can get paid to just walk or just get photographed, and it was a big shock, because I don't come from a family that has anything to do with that at all. For them, it is the most alien thought process. I think my mother actually asked me, "Are you sure you're not paying?" And it's not the other way around, because the first time it wasn't a princely sum of money, but she was fairly shocked to even understand that a world like that exists, right? So it was very easy money. It was very simple stuff. I had a discovery at some nightclub that I had gone out to. I must have been 16 or 17 years old. Must have fibbed my way through the security guards to say that I must be 21. And I think somebody, it's a very typical story, because even my television entry has a very interesting backstory of complete discovery, never trying to go out and trying to do it. But modeling happened like that. Did some very big campaigns all through the launch of Honda motorcycles in the country, 3 or 4 big suiting ads. So I did good stuff, but always the idea was that this is not a career at all. It was great money. It was fantastic to do what I did. I met my life partner out there, so that worked out well. Maybe not for her, but worked out very well for me. So I think that was fantastic.
How long was this period you as a model?
Not too long. I think I did it for around 3.5 years, and that was pretty much it. It was always a stepping stone to, can I accumulate some capital to do more. The entrepreneurship.
It was like hustling.
Yeah, it really was. And I think modeling at that time should have been called that only, because it was nothing more than that. All the people behind it were doing the same. All the big designers today were just trying to get one sequence in a fashion show, and they've all gone on to become, big names today.
Yeah.
The choreographers, the people. So everybody's gone on to create great careers. But at that time, it was all hustling. Like, go to Sarojini Nagar and pick up a shirt, and can I put 2 emblems on it, and that's my, ramp walk thing. It was all hustling at that time. Slice of Italy came because I went and did a very short course, business course in California, and paid my way through by working in a pizza place that was owned by this Italian couple. So I did everything in that kitchen, from spinning the pizza, getting the dough right, what makes that perfect sauce, the 33% rule of, if you don't get the dough right, if the sauce isn't good and the cheese isn't good, nothing else matters. The toppings is something they used to actually frown upon, saying that, and pineapple was supposed to be like the worst thing you can put on a
That's
pizza.
so controversial.
They would have thrown me out if I'd ever even considered it. And when I came back, I was like, okay, there's nothing here. There used to be a chain called Nerula's, which used to do cardboard pizza. Sorry, ex-Dosco that used to run it, but it was cardboard pizza in every which way. He used to call it that. And I thought there was this idea that I could do this. And again, this was again a hustle more than anything else, because I used to open at 7 in the evening and close at 11. So that's all I used to do. It was only delivery. I never thought of it in any other way. Of course, it became really huge at the end of it. By the time I sold out 13 restaurants, which were full restaurants, and 11 deliveries. So a total of 24 different, as we used to call it, pizza joints at that time. So it became quite big. And for the fact that I was all of 25, 26 years old, that at that time I think it was pretty good. And speaking of hustling, I must also tell you that my start actually was when I was in 9th standard. That's when I started off my first business, and it was truly a hustle. It was more a scam than a hustle. And it was in the world of tech, even though I didn't know I would gravitate to it. So I was actually, there used to be I'm sure you'll know this, she may be a little unfamiliar with it. There used to be a computer system for games called Sinclair Spectrum, or Spectrum as we used to call it. And it used to be, look like a piano or a flat case, keyboard would be better, and within which you used to put a audio tape. The audio tape used to have the data on it. And you would put it in, and then you bang it down, then you play the play button. It would then take the data from it, load it onto a TV, and you could play a game. It would take about 3.5 minutes for the game to appear on the screen. And what I understood was that, listen, if it's an audio tape, I can replicate it. So I started replicating games by buying the original, and thank you, piracy. And I'm the biggest advocate of anti-piracy today, but I started my career with that. So,
and it was just game tapes, or were you
only game tapes?
Okay.
Only. It didn't play anything else.
You didn't expand to any other. You didn't expand.
It didn't have much visuals at that time that you could translate. So no, I would have. And then I used to cut and paste from various posters, make my own poster, photostat it, and then I went to the store where I used to buy the games from. Paid a bribe to the guy who handled it out there, got his database from there, sent out that on actual snail mail to about 1,000 people, and then actually had a home delivery of the cassette. So all the things that never used to happen at that time were happening at the same price as what would be sold at the official store. I was very successful when I was in 9th standard with that. I ran that for a good 1 year.
How many clients did you end up getting?
I would say out of the 1,000, I think, and that was all Delhi, because I couldn't have done so it was all home delivery. I used to have, 3 or 4 of my friends that would actually help. They would go and deliver, and they would get about, I think, $10 or $5, whatever. I don't remember how much we were selling it for. I think maybe the whole game was sold for $30 or maybe $2 or $3.
Good hustle. Good hustle.
Oh yes. So I think the hustle part of it has always been strong.
Yeah.
So that's this thing.
So then,
but do not pirate now. Yeah.
What made you decide to get out of the pizza delivery business, considering it was very successful? 13 restaurants.
24 total, yes.
24 restaurants.
24. No, 11 of them were only delivery, 13 of them were actual
and
restaurants.
This is much more successful than you could have imagined when you started off.
At the age of 24 or 25, I'd actually franchised out also, which is again was an unknown concept out here. I had one in Chandigarh, one in Jaipur. I had 2 or 3 franchises here. I think it was the early success that I think completely killed it.
The early success killed it.
Killed it. I was not really prepared for it. And I remember a time where the phone ringing meant that something had gone dramatically drastically wrong. There was a disaster somewhere or the other. And I did not have the backup or support system to
Right.
think of bringing in professional management. Very difficult to convince someone at that age to come in and work for me. That would be of a very, very professional standard. Also didn't think things out very much. It came so quickly, so fast.
Scaled up too quick.
Yeah, and it was a one-man operation in every which way, and food and one-man operations should not go together. It's like the greatest oxymoron you can, because amount of pilferage and the amount of ways that you can. I had a team of about 6 or 7 managers, and any of them looking at this podcast right now, you know who you are, who worked with the software guy who had coded that entire thing to take orders. And at the end of the day, they would then have a combination of keys which would ask them how much money do you want to take out of the system for that day. And it would then go in and take that much of money out, take out that many orders, play around with the inventory that much. And all those 6 managers came in scooters and motorcycles and left in cars. And I think I went from a car onto a two-wheeler by the time I was done. Now that's an exaggeration. I sold it for a great sum of money, but I was losing money on a daily basis just running those, for sure.
So
yeah.
you went to school in California.
No. I went to school here. I just went for a 6-month course.
You went for a 6-month course, which you financed by working in the restaurant. And the fact that you
No, the other way around. I did that with doing my modeling. Then I came back, and while I was still trying to work out what I'm going to be doing, I did Slice of Italy. That became my life then. I did that for 5 to 6 years from the time that I finally sold out.
So you opened your first one through. How did you get the capital to open your first one?
So the first one was not capital intensive.
That was just a delivery place.
It was a delivery place. It
7-Eleven.
I had one gentleman that had come down from India who used to own a pizza joint abroad, and he was here. I think he was getting divorced from his wife or something, so he was here for 6 months. Brought him into it. He was my chef. I did everything in that time, from taking the orders to the first few deliveries. I had like 2 delivery people, 2 people in the kitchen. It was a very, very, not a mom and pop operation, also just me and 2 people.
A great learning experience, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I think
Sure.
Slice of Italy has been by far the one thing that has taught me every single aspect of whatever I do today. From every high to every low, to the fact that there can only be 2 things in life: you either learn or you actually get better. There is literally nothing else. You lose nothing. The worst experiences have been learning and only getting better. So I think Slice of Italy has been the best school that I went to in every which way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, people funnily enough say, I feel like, you were really hustling. There was some fire in you, that's the reason you started hustling in the 9th grade, right? Like most of the people are hanging out with friends, watching TV, doing whatever, playing video games. You were thinking about like, hey, how can I run this into the business? What was like what was something that was driving you, I would say? But I would put a twist to that question. People always say that, there's a dark side that operates people, right? The dark side could be not having approval from your parents, being bullied in school. So would you say you had some dark side in you which was really, really operating you, that constantly put a fire in you to get to where you
No,
are
I
today?
don't have any Bollywood scripts like that. I had a very, very
Just very hungry.
fulfilling. I think I had a great passion to succeed. I was always hungry ahead of everybody else. I was always asked this question, as I get asked even now: why do you need to do as much as you do? I think from the very beginning, if we go back to that 9th standard kid that was selling maybe 100 tapes a day, I think it's always been about the fact that I wanted to be a very successful person. Success for me has always been key. I think from everything that I've read, seen, or even experienced, I think it's been a very important factor for me. It's not that I came from very, a fantastic background, very, very low middle income background.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a very critical factor. I don't have any really dark side to tell you. There are no interesting stories there at all.
You say you really want to be successful. Why? Where was that need coming from?
So, I think it's very difficult. I know this is a question that I get asked quite often, the why part of success. I think these are things that get instilled in you in the formative years, and sometimes it's impossible for a person to answer why. But I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it isn't so much money and power as the fact that you can do so much more if you have a lot more. And I always wanted to do a lot more. I don't think I have the even one cell or small part of me that is ever satisfied with where I am. I know this is not a very happy thing for people. There's no real learning from me. I know most people are like, okay, listen, you can have a time where you can now sit back, relax, and enjoy what you've done. For me, the creation of doing more is very, very critical. So whether that is success, the money and power part is not really a big deal for me. But to do a lot and to be the best in what I do drives me almost batty. So I would say, I'm sure it comes from within that.
So then, building on that, what kind of a legacy do you want to leave in either technology and or entrepreneurship and or just in all the pursuits that you're in?
So I think I'll just take from within the same sentence that I said that, if the legacy to be left behind is that whatever I did, and in whichever field I did change things for people. So whether it was the best pizza that they'd ever had delivered to their home, or a video of mine that changed someone's buying pattern of buying shitty gimmicky tech to actually tech of value, to a person that did not get frauded out because I did a video on this is a fraud that is happening, a scam that is happening, therefore do not. So I don't want to leave a legacy that he was the best in his field, but if I leave a legacy behind that in every field I changed things around for people. And for me today, I just won an award for Tech Influencer of the Year, and
Congrats.
So on stage I said it's come too early because I'm hoping my hunger for it in 3 years down the line would have been even more. It's come within the first year, so sometimes it kind of relaxes you a little. But ironically, I call myself an uninfluencer. I've always
What
been.
does that mean?
Yeah, so I've always been the person that tells you more about what not to buy than what to buy. That here are the 3 things in this that aren't very good, so it may not be right for you. Even when I praise a product, I always end by saying, but it's not right for you if it's this. So I always call myself the uninfluencer. I tell you what to buy by telling you what not to buy, right? So it's ironical to win Influencer of the Year. But this has really been something I've always done. Even putting together Slice of Italy, there used to be people that used to be, I used to be behind the counter. No one knew that I owned the thing. So it was just another person that they were placing an order with. And I would actually tell people, listen, no. Don't take the pesto sauce. It's not really been very well done today. And people were like, shocked, listen, you'll get fired because of the fact that you're criticizing it. But I used to always like getting the best to people. And I continue doing that today because I look at every script I write and everything that I put out with that very clear jaundiced view of, is this going to help someone buy the right thing? Is it going to be something where someone may have been saving up 6 months worth of money to buy the next best phone? And based on a video that I'm just putting out because I'm in a little bit of a hurry that day, or the brand is somebody I'm very friendly with, and I've just put out that video and he's bought the wrong phone, that's 6 months of that person's life and a big dream that he may have aspired to. That
so there is a huge responsibility that you have.
And it is only grown. It is growing even bigger day by day because of the amount of people that feel, because credibility, I think, in the world of tech reviews is almost at its lowest today.
So I got the elevator pitch for you. Yeah, your legacy is the uninfluencer
of the year,
who impacts people's lives very positively to make great buying decisions.
Yeah, I think, or negatively by telling them what not to buy.
What not to buy. Or what not to buy.
Yeah. So I think the what not to buy is so much more important than what to buy, because by the very process of elimination, you'll end up with buying the better thing. Yeah. So it's a very, very important thing to me. Everything I do centers around that today. Yeah. So that I think is a good one. I'll take that.
There's no royalties on that. Okay. So this is a great time to segue now into actually tech, right? And AI.
Yeah.
Okay. AI is the buzzword all around the place, especially after what's happened over the last few months on ChatGPT, DALL-E, Llama, and so on. Yeah. Can you tell our audience, how do you differentiate between real AI and fake AI? I mean, it's something a lot of, it consumes a lot of time for us at SenseAI as a fund, where we look at these as we meet founders, we see the challenges they're facing. We're trying to distinguish between all of the different issues, right? But if you were to break it down simply, fake AI versus real AI, and how would you help people differentiate?
So I'll actually give it to you as an example, right? Because let's take the most common thing that we all use. Therefore, for all of us here and everybody that's watching this, it would be the mobile phone, right? And the buzzword, the most misused word, AI being used as a marketing tool, is more rampant than when iPhone came out and every single brand used the I before trying to sell something. That was, I think, the most misused marketing that happened in tech, and now it's AI, right? And at this present moment, there is more fake AI than real AI. That's another big problem. The fact that .ai, which of course is also something that you have, is also one of the, more people own a .ai domain right now that have nothing to do with AI at all than any other, right? Which is, I think, obvious, because AI sells, right? Anything that you throw in with AI will sell. So let me take a very simple example. You asked for an example, and I'll give you one that is a favorite of mine. Almost every brand that sells mobile phones today uses the word from the processor upwards, that has got AI built in, baked into the product, right? In everything that you do. And at the present moment, there is no mobile phone that has any AI in it. So I'll give you the example, one of the ones that is used for battery, right? That AI will kick in for the phone to be able to determine at what point it should start switching things off, changing screen around, not just the typical one, which is, save battery, which it will switch to an absolute formatted area, which is from here onwards, only these apps will work, the screen will dim by 20%, the, cores will shut off, not that. They talk about the fact that anyway it's doing it all through the day. That's not AI. That's just software coding. That's just a software that says, at this point, reduce it by this much. If this is happening, if the phone is being used a lot, if it's heating up, if gaming is going on, these are just hardcore baked software triggers. But AI in a phone would be that I wake up in the morning and my phone is only charged 75% because for some reason I forgot to charge it the previous day. I have left now. And the phone is intelligent enough to know my schedule, how long each of these meetings will happen. What do I normally do when I have these kind of meetings? Will I be doing 3 Zoom calls? Do I play a game usually in the middle of my lunch break? If I have a meeting which is from Gurgaon to Delhi, how is traffic going to be at 3 o'clock? He is going to be late. It will consume this much more battery. What is going to be happening with the time when he's on his way back, because he's going to get delayed because he's already running late? That it should be able to take that decision at the time I leave home at 9 a.m., not through the day. It has to be able to take data from everywhere, bring it all in, be able to analyze all that data, put it with all the machine learning and AI learning it has of me and my normal typical day based on that calendar, and be able to start doing things with that phone at 9 a.m. There's no idea doing it at 6 p.m.
Yeah, no, and that's a great example, right? It behaves like you. So it's going to tell you, hey, don't play the game today because you're going to consume too much battery. Because you have a Zoom call after that, for which you need to conserve battery.
It'll tell me to switch off Google Map for about 15 minutes, saying that the next 15 minutes are pretty clear, because that's going to consume a lot of your battery life. So it'll be, and it may not even tell me.
It's a natural progression.
It should be able to say, next 15 minutes, clear traffic. And it knows I have taken that path many times, so it knows that I do not know which left I have to anyway take. These decisions based on a great amount of data it accumulates, analyzes, and also then kind of syncs with my life, and then is able to consume just the right amount of battery to make sure I get home without the phone needed to be charged, or for it to know that here are the 2 places that it will have a chance to be charged, so therefore it can give me a message saying, charge, you're not going to get home. That's AI versus an algorithm which anyway will just do what it's doing for the rest of the world, with everybody being at par. The difference between fake AI and real AI.
That's a great example. Great example. So that is from a individual perspective, and I think that was a wonderfully relatable example because everybody has a phone, right? But let's go a little bigger into the environment, industry, ecosystem, etc. What do you think are examples of truly impactful AI that you have either seen or think should come about, right? It'll be great to get your thoughts. Just one or two great examples.
So you see, I'll tell you what. There are some industries that, for AI is going to be by far the single greatest change. I mean, take all of tech that mankind has ever seen up till today, and then take AI and put it together for what it's going to do just in the next. And I'm not talking 5 years, 10 years. I'm talking about a year or two. You will never ever have seen the kind of changes that it'll make for all of humanity than what AI is going to be doing right now. Those companies that do not have AI actually are using a lot of it without knowing it. More patents now are being given out for real AI than any other kind of technology. This is a true world-changing event. So I think AI is going to be, and not just think, I'm very, very sure of it, at least personally, that whatever mankind has seen with the greatest innovations till today, let's take it to be up till today, the date today, and what we'll see in the next 2 years will far surpass everything mankind has seen till today because of AI getting meshed into every single space. And there isn't going to be any kind of area that it will not touch. It already does, but it'll actually enhance it a lot more. So where am I seeing some fantastic examples of AI? Transportation. I think I think very few people really realize it, that almost everything that we do, how cities are planned, how we move about, what we do on a daily basis is all dependent upon transportation. So, roads determine what a city looks like, and the start and end of a good city is how well the road planning is. How do they connect city to city? Transportation, I think, has a huge impact on most people, right? On all mankind, in fact. And I think it's having one of the biggest changes in that. I mean, autonomous cars, even though people think of it as fantasy and, very much in the future, we're already seeing fantastic examples of it. Political will is, I think, creating a greater problem with transportation than the technology itself. I mean, in many countries abroad, they don't really publicize it as much because it's taking away huge jobs. But most of the transportation that is being done for non-passenger work.
Exactly, right? I mean,
is already moved.
Precisely. And if you think of it, I mean, they started with drones, and drones obviously have a bunch of AI built in, right? So I'm a big believer in this, it's transportation and just autonomous bot support, right? Tractors,
trucks,
right?
Anything
Trucks,
that does not have too many humans that are inside the product is already moving to 7. And we have now seen factories where from the loading to the unloading to putting it in a truck to transporting it and then unloading it out there and stacking it and then doing inventory. Not a single human being involved in that entire process. So I think it's quite amazing. So manufacturing, transportation, you ask for, where is it having maximum impact already? Anything that is consumer facing, so whether it is customer services, so, we used to have those terrible experiences with automated bots today, and now a chat bot can do amazing. So anything that is customer facing, I'm seeing a great amount of AI because, it is so much a better experience with good ones, not the terrible chat bots that are being implemented right now, but there are some good ones where the amount of data that it can actually bring in according to what is your query or what help you needed, and is able to solve the problem and also give you something that is even more than you asked for is now possible. So anything that is customer facing, I'm seeing a great amount of AI that is playing a fantastic role. And content creation is unbelievable because generative AI, separate from everything else, is the big game changer for most of the work I do right now. I think we're already at 30% AI from ideation, scripting, generative AI, which is art, which is video, which is unbelievable the amount of things that I'm being able to do already when these tools are not being used by everybody, and therefore it's a very narrow silo that we are working in right now. Imagine when this starts to spread out, media, journalism, content creation, and do remember that content creation by itself is going to be one of the biggest businesses in the entire world. We haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg in content creation.
Yeah.
It's only starting to get there, right? You're going to see an explosion, and 90% of it will come AI based.
So on content creation, obviously the big challenge is everything related to the misuse of content creation. Yeah, fake news,
The
fake
deepfakes.
videos, fake deep fakes, all of that stuff, right? And it's getting more and more sophisticated with AI. Share with us a couple of areas where the misuse is highly rampant and actually has negative impacts for people, right? And what do you think are things that can be done either from a regulatory perspective or even just industry perspective to control this?
So, two things. One, anything right now in tech, especially AI, that you say wow to, is an area of concern. I think that's a good way to make sure that...
That's an interesting
Yeah, it
perspective.
is, because that's the way you should look at it. The minute you go wow, it means that it is going to be misused to the point that at least people that are not very well versed with it can be misled. So anything that you see a video where you say, wow, look, Bruce Willis has been taken in a Russian ad and he can't speak in, Russian, and he's done a better job because it is all AI and Bruce Willis doesn't know and hasn't been paid for it. You may go, wow, but he lost.
Yeah.
Okay. And he's been used in an ad, or a person who's kind of already signing off on, actors and all are now being given contracts where, listen, for bits and parts of your movies, we'll use AI, so therefore there's less danger. Do not know that fine line where they could be used in a bedroom scene, could be used in so many other areas.
Yep.
So wherever you go, wow, the misuse is going to be the highest, right? I think video and voice are going to be the two single greatest challenges that we will face, because the minute I can get the finer nuances of voice and I can then take out a clip, it can be misused, and I can go to town with saying it's not me. Those that want to believe it will, those that will not want to believe it won't.
Yeah.
And the other dark side of it is that original clips where you actually have caught someone doing something wrong, he can say it's just AI and therefore also escape. So it is a really that typical thing of, those who live by the sword. AI will have that problem. It is most rampant in video and voice. Singers. We've seen software examples where they've taken a kind of song never sung by a particular person and got the two together, and AI is able to take the finer nuances of it. See, just a voice is okay, but the way he would sing it,
Yes.
right,
The intonations and all of
is
that stuff.
unbelievably accurate already. Imagine what will happen now, and we're only seeing subsets of these small areas of these being released, like ChatGPT. What they have versus what they've publicly released are two completely different things, right? So
No?
yeah,
Could you shed light on that? I don't think most people know about that.
So, when they say ChatGPT 2, right, they already have a lot of ChatGPT 5. It's the same as when Samsung comes up with the Fold 5. That's not what they have in their labs, right? It's not that they already know what Fold 7 and Fold 8's capabilities are, because they are, tech cannot be what you release today is what you actually are innovating and inventing today. So ChatGPT is a subset. It's a incredible tool, but what you're seeing is nothing like what the capabilities already are, right? So a lot of the misuse will come from within that. Now, regulation and everything else, I think most governments and people right now that are, and I'm talking about worldwide, don't have the capability to understand the amount of tech. If you've sometimes seen, when they make the Facebook guy or the Google guy, they have a committee and they're having questions that are being thrown out at them. You realize how less they know about this world because of the silliness of the questions. And AI is a whole different world. They'll have to take a crash course of 5 years to come anywhere close to what they need to be able to then regulate it. So who regulates it? I think that becomes the biggest problem. AI's greatest problem is not going to be us having robotic overlords like most movies and books will tell us.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be the daily usage problem that AI will actually bring to people. So it's not that, that singularity and the takeover and we will be the slaves and AI will be the Lord and all that. That is, that just is not in our lifetime, not in our children's lifetime. So
Yeah.
it's a useless discussion to have completely. But the privacy problems that we are creating, because more data, you rule, right? And AI needs to be fed more and more data. The commercialization, the corruption, the amount of sophistication of scams that will come because of AI, a voice that calls you on your phone and says it's your daughter or son, a video that is released out saying this is the kind of trouble you're in. Scams will become incredibly sophisticated. It's the daily usage of too much data that will be taken from you without you knowing what to do to control it, and how it will be used that become some of the greatest problems with AI.
I think these are fabulous examples, right? I mean, this whole dystopian thing is highly overblown, right?
It is. It's
But I do want to push into that a little bit
Okay.
because it's a bit it's
interesting.
commercial, right?
okay.
So, started with a Terminator many years back, and of course, all of this stuff is done. But realistically, let's not go dystopian, but let's just say pushing the boundaries of what capabilities of AI can be, where do you think there could be dystopian dangers? And then
Sure.
I have a second question, which I'll come to the daily stuff, which I think was fantastic. But let's talk about the dystopian dangers that could be there in the next decade or two.
So I'll actually even pull it back to again the next 2 or 3 years, because
Okay.
I'm actually more interested with the impact of AI in the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
Because anything we say right now for more than a 3-year period, we will all be dramatically wrong. Best way to get egg on our face is to actually predict things 3 years from now, because like I said, the next 2 or 3 years with AI, IoT, smaller sensors, incredible battery life, autonomous everything, it is too dramatic a change for us to be able to make predictions more than 3 years from now. So let's do 2 or 3 years. The dystopian future that is very much real is the displacement of jobs. What you do today and will it last? People give these beautiful examples of, listen, don't be too afraid of it. Every time there is a technological innovation, the typewriter scared people, the printing press scared people, the human mind will not be used anymore. They burnt books. Correct. People to give the example of agricultural to when we actually went to industrial revolution, or see how jobs got displaced out there, but look how quickly we self-corrected.
Yeah.
Well, actually we didn't. The Great Depression, how the world collapsed for many times, it's not as painless as people seem to think. And this is far more impactful, way more than we can imagine. So the cliche is to say how repetitive is your job, and therefore it will get replaced. That was 10 years back. It already has. Anything
Yes.
repetitive is already being replaced at the speed of light. We just don't know it because we're not the people doing very repetitive jobs right now. So a lot of it is already changing. You don't hear much about it because, like I said again, the politics of it doesn't make it very obvious that we should talk about how most companies want to move to, 99% automation and only 1% humans working out there. That is the big aim for almost everybody. That's where maximum profits will lie, and nothing is going to stop that. I think the big question to ask is not the cliche of is your job repetitive, but what is the job that you do? Can you add AI and deliver 100x because of it? Because if your job and you taking AI, don't have the capability and skill to bring AI into your job and do a 100x better job, then there is someone else who will take that job and do 100x better than you. So I think that's a very important part for you to. Repetitive jobs are gone. There's nothing you can do to it. You cannot have the serving of coffee with a big smile to be more than just the human factor. The other 90% of it, of making the coffee and everything else, will get and already is. So anything that is customer facing, anything that is repetitive will go. It's just not possible for it to survive. It already is. You really have to look at your job, what you do. So whether you're a lawyer or a copywriter or a graphic designer, can you bring AI in, learn that skill, if you're fantastic with what you think you're doing with ChatGPT, and schools and colleges are so scared that, it'll be used, bring in the courses to make sure that the prompts become the intelligence today, because the real intelligence of a person has always been how we are different from any other living organism is that we can question, right? And we have the emotion to
So
question
nicely
better,
said.
right? It is.
Yeah.
So, when people say, we will ban it, that would be the worst. It's the same as,
We don't understand it enough, and therefore
and therefore
just do a
ban
blanket.
it. So anything, whether it's the job wala banning because politics makes it look better, or it is the school or the university that will ban it because they're like, okay, this will only become, plagiarism will become big. That is the worst way. It's like burning books, right? You cannot do it by banning it, right? Can you have something, I've seen people who understand how to use a prompt the second and third time versus the first prompt. And you see the amount of intelligence it takes to be able to do a second prompt the right way. Rather than saying, write an essay for me, those people who say, you are, and you get a role playing done by ChatGPT, and you explain a situation to it, you give it your kind of writing. The amount of knowledge that you get back on a second and third prompt is true human intelligence and knowledge. And therefore, if we can understand that incorporating AI, all generative, productive, and everything else, and the data crunching AI that you actually have, narrow or wide, whatever are the latest terms that people want to use, it will eventually come down to whether it's a business you run, a job you work for, or a student, or education, anything that you're doing. Can you bring AI in and do a 100x better job because the tools exist? Do you have the capability to do it?
This is a great example. You just started talking about teaching large language models, right? Can you demystify this for our viewers, right? And talk about just a very high level, right? Just how AI works. I mean, a lot of people are hearing it, thinking about it. You just give all these other real life examples of where AI can really prove to be a absolute negative influence, etc. Demystify AI a little bit for our audience.
Okay, so let's take the example of ChatGPT, and I'm glad that ChatGPT came in and kind of made AI a little bit more understandable to people, even if they don't understand the finer intricacies and nuances of how it's working, but at least the product is not as, the barriers are not so high because, it's happening somewhere in the world because, most of the times tech starts to use jargon. So, when you had cloud computing, confuses people. Fuzzy logic obviously confuse people. The worst terms are always put for tech because they do the exact opposite. And therefore, I think AI had that problem and ChatGPT took it away. You can use it and get a kind of an example. But most people's first usage of ChatGPT is the same as Google. They are putting a search query, not using the power of what ChatGPT can do. So, like I said, large language models. It's actually quite simple. Again, to give you an example of what you had spoken about, within ChatGPT, there is something which is not AI, and then I'll give you an example of true AI, right? So when you put in a PDF document, you scan a PDF document to ChatGPT and you give it saying that summarize it for me. It's amazing. It will do a great job. You can even summarize it for me in 5 bullet points. And in about a microsecond, it will be able to give you a 99% accuracy already, that if you were to sit and do it versus it's doing it for you, it will give you a pretty good one. But that's not really AI. That's just good language modeling. It has not taken anything else from you. It has not analyzed anything else and put it back. Now let's take it to be that I feed in a PDF and then I say to AI, you're now going to be the person who's going to interview me for a job based on the PDF that I've fed in of this company that I'm going to give a job, the interview to. I want you to be able to summarize the questions that you will be the best questions that could be asked by the company based on all the stuff that I've given you. the answers that I have already put in, so a little bit of work that you put, saying that
Context
here are
feeding.
some of, this
Yeah.
is how I look at it, right? And now tell me the questions and the answers also, and what could be the other queries. That's just the first prompt that you put in. So it'll analyze the company, the website, the PDF, the documents, everything that you can actually put out there. You could be giving the best job interview of your life based on just one well done prompt, right? So that's, I think, an interesting example to put
A
in.
great example.
Yeah, but don't just put in a PDF and ask it
Yeah.
to summarize.
Yeah.
That could be done 10 years back also. You just didn't know the tools were there. It was just a little ambiguous the way it was done, and maybe the accuracy was lesser.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people say AI is not very good with emotion, doesn't have a sense of humor. I'd actually ask all of you to feed in saying these are 3 jokes I find very, very funny. And then on a second prompt, ask it to come up with a joke on a topic based on the kind of humor that you have already fed it. You'll be quite surprised. I can guarantee you that you will laugh. It's not terrible jokes like most people think they are. You've got to be able to get the prompts right.
See, and that's the point, right? The whole thing about AI and having taught it, it's also been taught different senses of humor.
Absolutely.
Right? There's sardonic humor, there's dry humor, etc., etc. So AI has all of these. It knows all of these, right? And the humor that it's going to reflect is going to be based on the questions that you ask.
Absolutely. If
Right,
it's
and-
a dry question will get you a very dry answer.
Precisely.
A Google search query in AI will get you terrible results.
Yeah.
It is just, you've got to completely rethink
Yeah.
the way you actually use AI. It is no longer a search query.
Yeah.
The minute you kind of redraft that in your mind, you'll start understanding what a prompt is. A prompt is very different from a query.
Yeah.
So-
I love how you are talking about, it's not that AI will replace us, but it's about the people who fast and quickly enough accept that this is the reality we're living in and learn how to really, really utilize and capitalize on it are the ones who will get ahead. So it's not like AI will replace us, but
Not in the foreseeable future.
yes,
I mean, that-
but it is in fact the people who learn how to use AI correctly will replace us.
Yeah. My favorite pet topic is the amount of opportunity lost in education, right? So our greatest debates right now are most schools, principals, teachers, everyone afraid of AI and ChatGPT becoming the big villain, the dark part of it all, like plagiarism and all of these things. I think it's a very important factor to be able to put in AI because from the most fundamental starting period, it could be even kindergarten level because there's so much interesting things they could actually have a child do and the response back from AI. And AI is, remember, not just words. It is visual, it is picture, it is art, it is imagery, it is so many different things around us which could,
Yeah.
I mean, imagine a kid just, a teacher just asking a kid, what would you like me to actually create for you? And the kid describes it, the teacher actually puts it as a prompt and a picture appears. I think it's one of the most amazing tools that can imagine in those formative years what that brain will do with all that information that I spoke. And now I'm changing what I spoke about and what I imagined and wanted, and it's still appearing. I'm making the changes as I'm speaking, right? Because the biggest problem is going to be the same as what I spoke about, the job displacement part, right? That if you cannot incorporate AI into what you do and do a 100x better job, someone else will and do a 100x better job than you. Imagine those students that will come out of an educational institute which has used AI
Yeah.
into a world that uses AI in everything
Yeah.
versus those that will come into a world where their educational institute banned AI into a world that uses AI. They will
Complete
not.
misfits.
They'll not. This will not be a have and have not. It'll be a have and you're done for.
Yeah.
You have nothing, no chance to catch up because at that point, there's no catching up for 12, 13 years of what AI will have again advanced and developed further. So
Yeah.
I think it's a huge opportunity already being lost. I was invited for a talk to all the IB principals. I was very surprised to hear fear rather than excitement.
Absolutely.
And I'm starting to see this all the time. I gave
And
a
you
talk.
saw more fear than excitement.
No, mainly fear.
Mainly fear.
All the questions were how do we catch rather than how do we make it better? How do we catch the fact that a student has kind of taken something which is, a chat GPT essay and bunged it in? The fear is the greatest problem. That's all I really heard. The excitement of what we could do next is there, but it's, I think, more a cover-up so that you don't look like you're anti-AI than the reality of it. I don't think there's much interest in right now. I think there's a lot of fear. I think there's a lot of redundancy also. Do our teachers required? That's another big question that comes in. The answer is no. No. Not the kind of, if you're afraid of AI. So I think it's a big problem, and I'm starting to see it already.
Yeah.
And I think these 4 or 5 years that we lose, a lot will be lost with this opportunity. And the second one is any industry that is not teaching those people that they know already that in 6 months or 1 year, these jobs are going to be redundant. Are they working towards a relearning program? Because those are fantastic people that can be used very well after a while, but do they have all those plans for them? I doubt it. I'm not really seeing that. I think it's more a listen, they'll be out and our profit centers will be more healthy. I don't think there's really any way people are thinking of how to use that amazing workforce and that amazing human resources better. So I think those are some of the opportunities that we are already starting to lose in a world that is already moving very, very fast. And by the way, speaking of the dystopian world, a lot of people speak about the fact that, I am so, and most techies do, the slow burn of AI, that listen, we could have moved much faster. I was expecting it. Thank God there is a slow burn, because the regulations or other things that need to be catching up. The people that will be left behind. At one time we used to say those that can use technology today versus those that cannot, it becomes a big gap. AI will make that gap much wider. So a slightly slower AI turnout
Adoption and etc. is great.
is so much better than us moving much faster. I think it'll leave a lot of people in the dust. So the slow burn is good.
Excellent. So great questions and great
questions,
answers.
He said the answers weren't very.
I was going to actually.
Great questions.
I was going to hit you with the next set of great questions. Actually, that's what I was thinking. But no, great answers. So we're going to move to something called the rapid fire round.
Sure.
Right.
And I'm going to basket if I answer well. I mean, that's supposed to be format for these, right?
You're going to actually get a bottle of alcohol that you won't drink, which you can gift back to me or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Okay. So let's go. Yeah.
You have 10 seconds or less to
All
answer.
right. Okay.
What was your first investment?
First investment. A company called Motherson Sumi.
Excellent.
Yeah, and it turned out to be an incredible investment. So good to have a first investment that went very, very well. Pure and simple because I had so much of interest in auto, and I always, again, because I go deeper into how it works. So what they were making, I knew was kind of going to be the future for a lot of cars. So
At what age did you make that investment?
I think 15.
15?
15 or 16. Yeah.
Wow.
I still hold those, by the way. I haven't sold. I think it's got split 15, 16 times by now.
That just might be the answer to my third question. Okay. So, which investment has brought you your highest returns?
Yeah, I think this one. No, there may be. I think I don't do too much startup investments because of the fact that it becomes a conflict of interest, because I review a lot of those and therefore can't really invest into a lot of them. One or two of my startups have been slightly better in terms of return, but this one has been spectacular. I'm very thrilled.
Which one? Motherson Sumi?
Yeah.
And how long have you held on to that investment? You're still holding most of it, you said?
I think I may have sold some, but I think most of it.
So
how
30
many
years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, easily.
30 years.
If you could go back in time, what investment decision would you reconsider or change?
Thank God I didn't do any of the Bitcoin stuff and everything else. Even though everyone expected me to, and I didn't deal in any of the monkeys and the apes also. So those were the ones that I didn't do too much. I didn't do Bitcoin not because I love the tech behind it. I just find, and I know this is a very contrarian view, I just find that when your value is created by only selling to someone else who thinks there is more value to it, I know that's for everything, But when the inherent value is not therefore, very defined, and you only can make a profit by selling to someone else who thinks that it has more, I found that system to be a little bit.
So did you invest or did not invest?
I did not.
And would you reconsider that?
No, I'm very happy with the fact that I am. I did not get into the whole Bitcoin world at all. So I think that's an investment that I'm happy I didn't get into.
So you kind of said you're conflicted with startups. My question is, do you invest in startups at all?
So I do. Yes, I do. I've started doing it more recently after I moved from employment with a media house to consultant and therefore now independent, because at that time there was a clear conflict of interest. Almost everything I do in the world of tech as a tech journalist, I have to review. So it just cannot be only the products that you see which are consumer facing, but even companies and everything else. So there is always a conflict of interest. And at one time, one of the most attractive things was that, listen, review us and we'll give you a stake and review us well. So I'm very glad to say that I never did any of those. But a few which were, how usually things happen. A friend that I thought was going to be doing something very, very well, and therefore we took the thing that I'll never review a product of yours, but I do think that you have something very strong. I have done, and some of them are totally tanked. So more friend than a good product, and some of them have done very, very well.
So what's your startup investment?
Is a company called Goki that does a lot of health. They do health bands, and then they got into insurance to do with health, which I think is the important part of it, right? So the part that I found most interesting was that the hardware was only just an afterthought. The band that is sold by Goki is not a profit center. It's everything else that they do around it, right? And insurance was supposed to be the main part of it. So Goki has been a great investment for me, by far my star investment.
Excellent. I know you said you love autos, but what sector now do you find most appealing to invest in?
I think anyone that is doing anything which isn't AI related with the real AI, not the fake AI, right, I think would be completely a disservice to himself if they do not think AI is by far going to be, if it's going to be world changing, it's got to be the sector that is. And I know it's a very, very wide field, but within that, I had already told you, for me, transportation, content creation, media, and anything which is very clear consumer facing, it has to be where the consumer directly interacts and therefore AI comes into play, are the four big sectors for me.
Excellent. What international market do you find to be the most promising?
International market.
Or just global market, that can include India too.
Yeah, so actually I'll tell you why. This is not doing the whole nationalistic and patriotism kind of a thing, but more to do with the fact that what I'm starting to see come from within India. I'm starting to see a lot of very interesting things. We've gone from we are great at coding for others and we are very good with the software and we are terrible with hardware. All of that has really changed, and we're very, very good with the fact that we built that base for software coding, and AI is nothing really but very intelligent software coding, which then can assimilate from a lot more and take all that data. We've been very good with data crunching. We've been the data crunching capital of the world. We've been the behind the scenes software coding capital of the world. So I'm starting to see, I think I'm very excited with what India is already doing and will do. So if it's where do I invest in? I think I'd be pretty happy to do a lot of investments within India, because I think we have also the number of people here to also be able to consume all that. So I think it's a good, you may or may not do very well globally, you can do something here, but AI anyway I think is a global play automatically. If it does well here, it doesn't really take much for it to do well elsewhere also. The AI itself will adapt.
Yeah. Okay, and the last question in the rapid fire is for you to complete. I love AI because...
I was supposed to be doing one of these also. Because it's going to be, it'll change everybody's life for the better. Something that I anyway want from everything that tech does. Till now, a lot of tech has been gimmicks. This is very real.
Wonderful.
Amazing. That's a phenomenal rapid fire. Okay, coming to our last question.
Oh, there is one more, okay.
Yes, which is, this is a closing tradition on the podcast where the last guest asks a question to the next guest. So our previous episode was called the Partners episode, which we were just talking about, which is Rahul, Raja, and Vinish, and they'd love for you to answer. What would you want people to say on your 80th birthday?
Oh, 80th birthday. Okay, so 50 years from now. Okay. So, on my 80th birthday, I hope they lie and say, listen, he looks 50, which I think is par for course. So I think that they'll say anyway. But I'd really like it to be that if they say, on my 80th birthday, he still has the energy of a 50-year-old and the mind and passion for a 20-year-old who's just setting up his first startup. Because I'd really like to go out with a bang at whatever age I do, still doing exactly what I do. I think that passion shouldn't burn out. I think my single greatest fear is that I don't wake up every day in the morning with a little bit of the butterflies in my stomach. I promised myself when I started doing television shows and live events that the day the butterflies aren't there and I'm not nervous before I start a show or go onto a live stage, I think I'll stop that day. So let the butterflies continue is about all I'd want at 80 also.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can we
Wonderful.
clap?
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Great job.
Thank
you.
Raja, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Excellent. Come in.
This is the best looking podcast you've ever seen in my life.
Oh, nice.